Well, good morning and Shabbat Shalom for you in the Southern Hemisphere who may be watching. Good evening. I'm sure it's getting dark over there, already dark, depending on where you are in the Southern Hemisphere. But hello and welcome. This is the Shabbat of Sukkot, the Shabbat of the Feast of Tabernacles. We double up the holiness factor. We double up the energy, the inspiration, the joy of this day. We have our regular Sabbath added on to the beauty of the Feast of Tabernacles. Today, we have a couple of things that will go on in our fellowship here. We are still in the aftermath of a great celebration we had last night for a beloved friend, a young man who found his vanishing point and graduated. We celebrated here in this building last night in a beautiful way, and great crescendos of heaven reaching earth, releasing energy and power. So we are still in the throes of the aftermath of that, and if we smile a little extra today, if we're a little more tender, humble in our hearts, it's because we've been in a beautiful, sweet atmosphere of the presence of the King. How he rejoices, he delights in the death, as we call it, of his precious ones. Well, and today we continue the celebrations because we will have two of our members marry. This will be their wedding day, and we will celebrate that event. Our hoop is just over to my right, to your left, and you probably can't see it in your camera, but we'll be putting it in place, and we will be celebrating the joy of the bridegroom as he gazes upon his bride. We wish you could all be here with us. We know that we were separated by distance, but in a way, hopefully through the joy that we share, the discussions that we have in this little time we have together through the camera, that we'll all be able to share in the joy of this day. Sukkot, the Feast of Tabernacles. We wait all year for this week. And this year has been a very busy and an active Feast of Sukkot in ways that would not normally be looked upon as joyful. But in the kingdom of heaven, all things are joyful. In the realm of the Spirit of the holy living God, there is no room for depression, there is no room for sadness, there is no room for anxiety or worry. There is only room for joy displacing those things as we connect with our source. And so we're going to talk a lot about joy today because that is the basic mitzvah of the Feast of Sukkot. I know. Gather the four species, build a sukkah, build a temporary shelter, dwell in the tabernacle for 7 days, dwell in that outside shelter for 7 days, take your meals, maybe sleep a night or sleep all the nights out there under the stars, connect with the heavens. Those are all mitzvahs. But at the root of it all, at the basic foundation of it all, the capstone of the entire process, and what makes the other things meaningful is the instruction that we are to rejoice. And so I will focus primarily as we discuss Sukkot this year and as our Sabbath of Sukkot proceeds. I will not focus primarily on Leviticus 23, 33 through 43, which is the basic elements of the mitzvot of Sukkot in the natural, practical realm. I will instead focus on Deuteronomy 16 and its discussion of the root cause and the root nature of what Sukkot is all about and why the other things are meaningful and how the other things, like taking the four species or like building a sukkah and dwelling in it, spending time in it, are meaningful. So we have this Deuteronomy 16. Let's see if I can unzoom what I'm looking at so I can make this easier to read. Okay. It starts like this. And I call this the underlying mitzvah of Sukkot, and I call it specifically the mitzvah of contagious joy. It is the most important mitzvah, the most important instruction. Some would call it a commandment, a directive, an inspiration of the Sukkot season, is to find and tune into and resonate with and carry forth and exude the joy, the contagious joy. And so, with regard to Deuteronomy 16, beginning with verse 13, it says, you are to, and in English we say, observe. You are to observe. That Hebrew word is asa. You are to do something. We're to observe something. And that Hebrew word is asa, and that doesn't really mean to observe at all. It means to get actively engaged with raw materials and build something. To have a blueprint in your mind of what it's supposed to look like, and to begin to engage, get your hands busy, get your feet busy, get your activities going, and build something. We are not supposed to observe Sukkot. We're supposed to build it. We're supposed to make it. We're supposed to construct Sukkot. We're supposed to, and I'm not talking about the building, the structure. I'm talking about the spirit of Sukkot. We're supposed to make it come alive and build it as a place. So you are to asa, make and build and construct according to a blueprint. Hag ha-Sukkot, the festival time of tabernacles, of temporary shelters. For 7 days, when you have gathered from your threshing floor and from your winepress. And you are to, here's the key word, you are to rejoice before you do any of the other things. You have to key in, tune in, zone in, focus on finding your joy. And it says rejoice. And I love the English in this particular situation. We're going to talk about what the Hebrew means, but I love the English because it says rejoice. That means you've been joyful before. That means that you're not building something from the ground up. You're starting from a foundation. You reach a foundation and you rejoice. So that's the idea. You are to rejoice, to dig in, to find the foundations, to go back to the root, to go back to where you began, to go back to the essence of what life is all about, and you are to rejoice, to refill it with joy, to reconnect with that joy. You are to rejoice in your Hag, in your festival, and actually that Hag is Het and Gimel. Hag is to move your feet. To shuffle your feet, to dance, to march. Even part of the temple ceremonies involve, and now synagogue services, involve taking the 4 species and marching around the bema, around the platform, and moving. It's about movement. If you stay still, if you sit still, you're missing part of the mitzvah. Joy comes with this movement. Whether it's pilgrimage up to Jerusalem, that's the first movement. Ascending to the high place of the temple, that's the second movement. Then doing the various different procedures, stay, movement. You are to rejoice in your Hag, in your foot movement. You, but not just you. This is not just about you. You and your son, and your daughter, and who all else? I've lost it there for a second. I got to go back to his. After your son, your daughter, your male servant and your female servant, and the Levite, and the stranger or foreigner or sojourner, and the fatherless, and the widow who are within your gates. Now that's a lot of people you're supposed to infect with your joy. You don't have the right to be joyful selfishly. That's not what this is about. This is about having the kind of deep, abiding, exuding, contagious joy that affects people. Your son doesn't come into this with the same mindset necessarily that you do. And yet, he should see your joy, get caught up in your joy, and begin to flow in that joy as well. Even if he doesn't have the understanding you do. Even if he doesn't have the knowledge. Your daughter, the same way. She may have other priorities, other things going on. But the joy should be so severe, so serious, so powerful, so moving, so inspiring. How's your joy doing? We're going to get first. Are you ready to be contagious with joy? Or are we still got other things going on? You, your son, your daughter, and your male servant and your female servant. Now, this is interesting that we're going to go here because this means that people who really would have no reason to celebrate just because you're happy. Their job is to get paid or to get their food or whatever they want to get from, and this is job, but not this week. Not when you reconnect with joy. When you reconnect joy, it becomes a delight. You know, I love Yeshua's statement prophetically. You know, I have come in the volume of the book to do your will, O God. I delight to do your will. I delight to do your will. There's this joy rises up within me, just the idea, the concept, I delight to do your will. This is to be so infectious in us that it affects even those who work for us or work around us, our co-workers. This is an amazing process. But it doesn't stop there. Male, female, doesn't make any difference. The Levite, the one who is really supposed to be, he's supposed to lead us in joy. But he lost his, let's say. He's somehow busy with the activities and the act, and we're bringing forth the joy that is contagious to him as well. But not just him. Then the stranger, the one who just happened by, the one who doesn't even know what's going on. You know, joy is contagious. If you really have true joy. Last night we experienced contagious joy. We experienced the contagion of joy, and I saw 150 or so people, whatever was in this room. And every face was shining with the joy of the King as children danced with flags and banners as they celebrated the life of their grandfather in this process and the gifts that he had given to them and the beauty of the life of the covenant that he had imparted. So the stranger, the foreigner, the sojourner that has no reason to even understand what's going on at all, much less to feel part of it, is now made to feel part of this with joy. This is the idea of Sukkot. And not only that, then we get to two categories. The fatherless, the one who's lost their dad. I mean, and the widow who's just lost her husband, which we saw last night as well. The fatherless who've just lost their father, the widow who's just lost their husband, they also are to be infected by your joy. We're to transcend grief. We're to cause people to be able to transcend sadness and depression and overwhelm, to bring that joy. Now you're seeing how important, this is the essence of the Feast of Tabernacles. The essence of Sukkot. The essence of our reason to be here. So all those, the fatherless and the widow who are within your gates. For 7 days, you are to cherish, treasure, keep, it says in English, but shamar, a hagag, a movement. You could stay constantly in movement, constantly engaged with this joy factor, constantly turning aside from things that are unjoy and going to the joy. And you are to do this in the place the Holy One, your God, shall choose. I'm going to have to help myself here. In the place the Holy One chooses, because the Holy One, your God, will bless you in all your produce and all the work of your hands, in that you will, so that you will surely rejoice. Surely rejoice. Samak. Okay, we're going to get to that. Rejoice. I'm going to have to do something else here because I can't do it. Excuse me just a second while I unzoom this so I can read it. Not going to have it. Okay. You may say, what has this got to do with Messiah? I want to remind you of a little upper room discussion. Many people see many things about the Messiah. I look at the last few words that he spoke to his Talmudim, the ones he treasured, the ones he said, I have loved you till the end. And his deepest love relationships were with his Talmudim that were in the upper room with him. And he says to them in that upper room, as he gets close to the end, he says, by this my Father is glorified, that you bear much fruit, and so prove to be my disciples. My Father has loved me, as my Father has loved me, so I love you. Abide in my love. If, as and when, to the extent you keep my commandments, you will abide in my love. Just as I have kept my Father's commandments and abide in his love. These things I have spoken to you, that my joy may be in you. His joy in us. And that your joy may be full to the ultimate level of fullness of joy, indistractable, unshakable, unbreakable. That is what Yeshua has said. Now, I want to kind of discuss with you what joy is. Because I think we, in English and in Western world, Western civilization, many times we think that joy comes from getting the right circumstances, getting the right conditions in place, and then we can be joyful. We have a bucket list in life, whether it be before we pass or before we just in the next year. We want this bucket list. If I get that, I will find joy. And we live in terms of the substantive and the physical and the material and the tangible in this realm that we live in. And we think that if everything lines itself up, we'll find joy. And you will not, because you cannot find it in that source. Joy comes from another source. In Hebrew, the word is sameach. Sameach. And it comes from a verb root. Everything in Hebrew is from a root. You find the root in the sentence, and that's samak. Samak. And it means to be light, to be free and unburdened. It's like when you have all the stuff taken off of you, the junk that you carry, the burdens, the weights, the pain, the wounds, the symptomology, the drama, and you're somehow able to escape that and rise above that. And you have this incredible lightness of being, we said in the 60s, this sense of lightness, and so this idea of being, of having samak, of samaking, or having sameach, is the idea of transcending, getting above the circumstances, breaking free, unmooring from the things that are unjoy, the things that are anti-joy in this world, most of which are pretty obvious to you, but some of which are not. But some of the things that to let go of, to break free of, to cast off the mooring lines of, things like anxiety, fear, sadness, worry, offense, resentment, envy. We'll talk about more as we go. We'll have some scriptural references, hopefully, that you can look at or think about with me as we meditate on this. Our goal and our purpose is to have a radical shift in the environment of the earth, starting with the covenant family, starting with the people of the living God, because if it does not start with us, it will not turn out well. It must start out with us, and we must humbly take on this calling, this responsibility to be the vessels of joy into this world. Contagious joy that will break the worry, the anxiety model, break the jealousy, envy model, break the hate and offense and anger and outrage model. Because if we do not break the model, the world will have no example. And the widow will not be rejoicing with us. And the fatherless will not be rejoicing with us. And the Levite will not be able to rejoice with us. And even our own sons and daughters will not be able to rejoice with us. What will we be carrying into the world? So we're here to break free. To break free. To ascend, to transcend, to rise above the struggles, the things of the flesh, and the things of the emotions, and the things of the pseudo-intellect that drag us down and create and constitute anti-joy. It is to become, in a sense, light-hearted. Some would say light-headed, light-minded, light-footed, light-tongued, light-handed. You notice the one word that was consistent through all those different hyphenated phrases was light. And I use that word light with tongue-in-cheek because I mean light as meaning not heavy, but I also mean light meaning light, meaning that sense of the ever-present glowing illumination and inspiration of divine light that He desires us to be. We are the light of the world. And so this is that idea of learning what joy is, consists of, and looks like. I want to tell you that there are basically three essential elements of joy, of simha. In order to, and I call it soar. I don't mean S-O-R-E, where a lot of us are that. I'm talking about S-O-A-R, to soar, to rise up, to soar in the heights, in the heavenly places. The three things, one is to break off the moorings of anti-joy. In other words, let go, break free, peel away the things that are anti-joy. The second thing is to connect with and dock, so as it were, with a joy fountain, a joy wellspring, something that is releasing joy, because we're rejoicing. We've been there before. We can find our way back if we can just get out from under all the burden of the things that we're upset about, frustrated about, worried about, anxious about, offended about. If we can break free of that, then we can find our way back to the wellspring of joy. We'll talk about what the wellsprings of joy are, but we'll find that process. And the third aspect, so first of all, is to break free, cast off the moorings of the anti-joy. The second thing is to find the wellspring of joy and connect with it and dock, as it were, so to speak. Join and connect with that. And then the third thing will be to the psalmist's pathway, the psalmist's way, the psalmist's garments, the psalmist's song. Taking up the psalmist's procedure. It is epitomized by this scripture in Psalm 9:2, and then it's repeated by Solomon. David wrote it, Solomon repeated it in Psalm 9:2, chapter 9, verse 2, and then in Song of Solomon 1, verse 4, these phrases are found. This phrase is found. I will rejoice and be glad. Now, if you heard the word will, I think you're getting the picture. I will rejoice and be glad. Though the world is falling apart around me, though my emotions are telling me I should be angry, upset, offended, outraged, worrisome, fearful, whatever it will, my will is to rejoice. So there's putting on the psalmist methodology. And then Psalm 1:4, of course, I will rejoice in you and be glad. I will extol your love more than wine. And that is kind of where we go. Now, I want to give you a little picture. Use a scriptural basis, use a scriptural picture to help us understand this. I will start with the Garden of Eden and Adam. Before the fall. Before the fall. Oh, what delight. Oh, the fountain of joy that he had. Oh, the delight in the Creator, the creation, the mission, the journey, everything about it. The fruitfulness of the garden, the possibilities, the potential, the light, all things that were in that garden, the garden of delight. And Adam was so joyful. No matter what happened, Adam would just rejoice. I remember, you'll remember reading whenever the Holy One said that it's not good that man should be alone. And so he made for him a ezer kenegdo, some people would call it a helpmeet. It's a lot more than that, but I'll just leave it with that. He made for him this, and when Adam wakes up from the deep sleep he had been in when this process was taking place, and he sees what the Holy One has provided, I do not know if there has been a person with more joy than Adam. Adam is the epitome, before the fall, is the epitome of joy, contagious joy, powerful joy, transformative, atmosphere-shifting joy. Everything he touched, everything he did was fruitful and beautiful, and that was what the garden was. And then something happened. And when it happened, what did Adam do? The first thing he did was he was self-conscious. He hadn't been self-conscious before. He'd been totally conscious of the Creator and what His creation and the beauty of what He was doing and the mission. But now he was self-conscious, and he said he felt naked. He felt humiliated. He felt unworthy, and he was. But he'd always been. We always are. And so he felt this. He felt this self-consciousness, this sense of rejection, sense of anger, sense of loss. He lost his joy. something stole his joy. And then he saw things that weren't right. And that was his whole idea of the fruit of the knowledge of the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Once you start seeing stuff that are not right, you got to learn what you're going to do with that. Adam did not have skill and experience to know what to do with that when he saw things that were not right. Do you? Do we? Because there's plenty of stuff like that. Now, you got to learn not to overreact to the things that are not right, because the circumstances are still on earth. The heavenlies are that the will of God is going to be done. The goodness of God is still going forth. The fruitfulness is still taking place. Seed time and harvest is still going on. The King is still in the heavens. Glory is still being had. And the end game will still fall out the same way. So learn not to overreact to things that you see that are not as you want them to be. And so I give this example, and you see some of the ways in which unjoy entered the world. Some of the ways in which anti-joy began to take over and dominate humankind. And now I want to move forward to the next story, which is perhaps even more poignant. And that's the story of Cain. Cain. Now, you know, he was the first son of Adam and Hava. And then we had Hevel, Abel, as many people call him. And so they come forth, and there's a certain joyful time, a time when we should reconnect. Harvest comes. Harvest season comes along, right? And so in this land of thorns and thistles that we're inhabiting now, suddenly, by co-laboring with the creator of the universe, with seed time, harvest, rains, and all the things that have happened place, Cain is able to produce and bring forth a harvest of crops. I don't know what all he made, what all he grew, but he grew it, and now he's in joy, in some level of joy. He wants to bring these things forth. And to celebrate with the one he co-created with, because you don't make anything yourself. If you make it, if it comes, it's because you co-labored with the Creator. And so he comes to share this beauty and this joy with the Creator. And if that were all there was, it would have been okay. But unfortunately, another brother came. Hevel came. And immediately, Cain has this moment of self-consciousness. What are you bringing? He likes, for those of you who are old as me, this is Tommy and Dick's mother, man. Mama, he always liked you best. And we feel this sense of rejection, this sense of comparison. And so Cain began to let the circumstances he saw infect him and steal his joy, take away his joy. And so he began to feel this animosity. And the Holy One came to him. Now, I want you to understand how this works, because it's a beautiful picture of how you lose your joy. It says in Genesis 4, 6 through, I think, 8, Vayomer Adonai el Cain, Lama kara lak, lama nefelu faneka. Now, I know that's Hebrew words, but... And the Holy One spoke to Cain. He came to visit Cain, as Cain should be the most joyful he's ever been, because this is his first harvest. What a joy to be able to produce from the earth your first harvest. And he comes to Cain and he says, "Why are you so?" And hara, the English word we usually translate it as angry, but it's not really angry. It's just agitated. Why are you so caught up in drama? Why are you so distracted? Why are you so full of this worry and anxiety and stress that you've got going on? Why aren't you joyful? This is your time to be joyful. Why are you so hara? Lama hara lach. And then he says, but also lama nefelu faneka. Why is your face looks like it just had gravity draw on it? Your eyes lost their brightness. Your smile has turned away. You've lost the outward manifestations of that, and your face is downcast in English. Why is your face so downcast? Why is like somebody's pulling, got a hook tied into your facial expressions, and they're dragging you down, and they're all, why is that happening to you? And what does Cain say in response? What does he respond? How does he talk to the Holy One? I'll be waiting What's his prayer life? Nada, zip, zero, none. He does not respond to the Holy One at all. The Holy One has come to him. He has manifested to him. He is asking these questions, and Cain is silent as a stone. Prayerlessness will kill your joy. It kills our joy. Anytime we begin to respond to events or respond to emotions that rise up out of our flesh, or respond to opinions and attitudes we have in our pseudo-intellect, as opposed to taking the conversation to the source of all joy, we will lose joy. And we will begin to become toxic. If you haven't figured this out yet, then you have not looked at our world lately. Or a lot of times how we relate to our world. Now, I have told you, I am going to ask for this Sukkot. I am actually not just going to ask, I'm going to proclaim, because I believe I've heard this from the Holy One. This Feast of Tabernacles will call forth a radical shift in the environment. This is going to call forth a change in the way the people of God deal with life circumstances and situations. Because if we keep going down the road we're on, where we're angry about this and angry about that and complaining and moaning, and if we keep doing what we've been doing, the world will not change on our watch. We are called to be contagious vessels of joy. And if we're not fulfilling that purpose, he'll find somebody somewhere sometime that will, and it will not be us. Now, I want to connect. I want you to connect. I want all of us in this room and all of us watching online to be able to connect with this and be part of this radical shift. So, the question is not just posed to Cain. Now, I know we got stuff in the world. We got stuff in politics. We got stuff in ideology. We got stuff in the church. We got stuff in the synagogue. We got stuff in world religions. So I come to you, speaking, parroting the words of the Creator of the universe. Cain, lama karalach. Why are you so agitated? Why are you so unjoyful? Why are you so angry, offended, easily irritable? Why are you like that? Why? Seriously, do you know this is anti everything I made you to be? Lamach karalak. But that's not even all. Looking at your faces, looking at the way you put things on social media, the way you interact with the world, the way you sit around coffee and talk. What happened to your face? What has happened to your smile? What has happened to the spark and the light in your eyes? What has happened to this exuberant, contagious, powerful, infectious joy that I made for you, that I designed you for, that I brought you forth on the earth to release? Lama. Where? Why? How? What? What had become? Why are you fallen? Why have you become like one of the fallen ones? Nephelo. If people always want to talk about the Nephilim. The Nephilim, some people. They're the fallen ones. The Holy One is not so concerned about who the Nephilim are. It's who they're not. He wants to know if you're not Nephilim, the ones who have fallen, the fallen ones. Is your face fallen? That's the first sign you're part of the fallen ones. I'm not talking about all the religious connotations of stuff. I'm talking, are you fulfilling the purpose of joy? Because if you begin the face fall process, you're going to have the rest of the fall take place. And so we have this Cain experience. So the question has to become, what happened to Cain? How did this happen? Why didn't he just say, I've got emotions, I got jealousies, I got self-consciousness, I feel inferior, I feel rejected. Why didn't he have a conversation with the Creator of the universe and work this situation out? Instead, it says what he did. And he went out and he found Hevel. This is what I think most of us do when we find something about the world we don't like. We go out and find some other human being that we can dump on. Whether we do it in person or whether we do it at some sort of a religious gathering, spiritual gathering, or whether we do it online, we find some human being that we can to dump on and to infect with the poison of our discontent, of our anxiety, of our stress, of our worry. Don't raise your hand, but if you're guilty, understand why you're guilty. What has happened to you is we lost the source of joy. We gave it up. We gave it away. So the thing, if we're going to cast off these non-joy items, the things that Cain had to deal with, we need to learn what it was he had to deal with. What happened? Now, I list some of them in my little outline that I've made for myself because I need to remind myself. And the first thing goes back to Adam and self-absorption. The first thing we need to lay aside, to break free of, to soar above, to rise above, is self-absorption. Our will, our way, our control. We want to control stuff. We want to make stuff happen according to the vision we have for it, the ideas that we have for it. Self-absorption. It's all about us. Our relationship with God's all about us. He's our sugar daddy. He's our judge, whatever we think of him as opposed to who he really is, which is our creator and co-laborer that is designed to put us on earth to serve with him, to work with him, to bring about good things in the earth. We look at him as, what have you done for me lately? Or what have you done to me lately? We either get happy or we get sad based upon that fact. And so here's if we don't learn to cast off, it's a discipline to learn to reject and cast off self-absorption. This is not news to anybody here. But self-absorption is raw. It is what is called evil in the book of Genesis. When you see evil, most people in the English Western world think, oh, it's some horrible moral failing. It's just self-absorption. It's just thinking I'm important. What I want is important. What I feel is important. What I think is important. What I believe is important. What my opinions are is important. Now, this is a discipline to learn not to think too highly of ourselves, as Paul said. To learn not to think of ourselves as more important than we are. We are here as servants of the Most High. We are here as his children. We are here as his beloved. We are here as his agents. We are here as his friends doing the work that he does upon the earth, and it does not involve our opinions. It does not belong our feelings, our emotions. Those things must be subjected to the plan and the will of God. This is a paradigm shift. I know the world's telling you you need to feel this stuff. You got to emote it. You got to be sentimental. You got to be nostalgic. You got to be emotional about everything. That's is why we're where we are, because everybody's all up in their emotions. Not that emotions don't give you a guide or an indication that something's wrong, but that's really what they are. They're a key to tell you, oops, I got something happening in my flesh here. And that is not where I want to go with this. That's what I want to get under control, submit it to the will of God. So self-absorption. It often manifests as self-pity. You can feel that with Cain's case, right? Victim syndrome. Everybody's mean to me. They're bad to my race. They're bad to my gender. They're bad to my region. They're bad to my state. They're mean to so and so. We take this victim mentality. If it weren't for them, I'd be happy. But because they're doing this stuff, I can't be okay. This is that victim mentality. And then that rejection syndrome. You like them better than you like me. They're getting more than I'm getting. They shouldn't be getting more than I'm getting. More pay, more affection, more attention. This is that issue of self-absorption. This is the first key of learning how to avoid and the anti-joy. Cast off the anti-joy. Can we just do this right now? Can we say, going forward, from Sukkot forward, from this point forward, we realize that every moment that we get caught up in our own self-absorption, our own emotions, our sense of whatever it may be, our own drama, that we are taking away from the plan of God for our lives and for the spheres of influence he has put us over. And this is something for which we will be held accountable here in this world as well as in the world to come. Second of all, the second thing is a fleshly or pseudo-intellectual idea of fairness. You could substitute morality. It's just not right. Cain didn't think it was right. It wasn't right. It wasn't fair. It wasn't fair that the Holy One delighted in a different level, at a different level than in Hevel's presentation, than he did at Cain's presentation. You do realize this is going to happen in life 1,000, 100,000 times. You're going to see things in this world that don't seem fair. You're going to see things that just don't seem morally correct, unjust, unjust. Now, the rest of the world freaks out about this. The religions can freak out about this. But the people of the living God are not supposed to freak out about this. Whatever is going on, the Holy One is capable of fixing it. This is why we don't do vengeance, because it is not ours to do. The Holy One will fix it in His way. And it would be much better than any human form of vengeance we could possibly extract. We don't worry about whether somebody gets the right amount of justice or not the right amount of justice on either side of the equation. This is the idea. We are all caught up in a pseudo-intellectual, fake knowledge, fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, level of fairness, equity, and morality, justice. Now, the paradigm shift is to trust God. No matter what it looks like right now, no matter what it feels like right now, to trust God has this under control and is going to work it. And He will, if we get with Him and have conversations with Him and follow His guiding, He will lead us to some level of making tikkun, of fixing the unjust things that He sees that need to be fixed, not the things that we see that we want to be fixed or punished. So learning how to reconnect with the Holy One, the source of joy. We had this, like I said, this celebration service last night at a time when most of the world will be mourning and crying of the loss too soon of a wonderful man. We were celebrating the graduation of a great Son of God, a precious Son of God. In a sense of learning that find the joy in everything. The third thing is pride. We have self-absorption. We have this pseudo-intellectual, fleshly sense of justice and fairness and equity that is all fleshly. And then we have pride, the sense of I'm important and it's not right, you're not treating me with the right amount of respect and dignity, and I'm going to get it one way or another. You don't give it to me, I'm going to take it in some other way. I'm going to make sure I get your attention. This is pride. It needs a need for affirmation, a need for recognition, need for approval. This is Cain's problem, right? I didn't get enough recognition for what I brought. I didn't get enough approval. I didn't get enough of a sense of affirmation. And therefore, I'm going to act out of my emotion to be able to go get the attention I wanted. Well, that's... This is where we run into real problems with joy, because as soon as we want to think we're the smartest person in the room, and we've got all the right ideas, and they just need to listen to us. They just need to let us tell them how to do it, how to fix it. We have not only lost our joy, we have compromised their ability to receive joy from us. This is the hardest. This is a paradigm shift, a total paradigm shift away from the way we do things. We try to control things. And it's a matter of pride that we do that. It's a matter of arrogance on our part that we can control things. Other people, situations that have been here before we got here and will be here after we're gone. And so pride, self-absorption, fleshly focus, pseudo-intellectual focus on justice and morality. Pride, seeking recognition, approval, and affirmation. Now I want to address this because all fleshly human beings are programmed by the fall to seek affirmation from other human beings and from institutions and to feel part of something. This is part of the death trap of the world. When you want affirmation from anything, even if what you want from God is affirmation. I just can't wait till I hear, "Well done, your good and faithful servant." If what you want is affirmation from God, you will be chasing that rabbit for the rest of your life, and you will never find it to your satisfaction. It will never be enough. Not enough affirmation, not enough recognition, not enough sense of approval by other people. He says, no, you're not here for their approval. You're not here for my approval. You're not here for their affirmation. You're not here for my affirmation. You're not here for their recognition. You're not here for my recognition. You're here to do your job. You're here to be the sons and daughters of the living God. You're here to release the fountains of joy in the world. The fourth thing that happens with regard to the joy stealers, the little foxes that take your joy. The fourth little fox is what I call lovelessness. What happened to Cain? What did he lose, most importantly, that set this whole thing in motion? He lost love. He lost his love for his brother, Hevel. He lost his love for the Holy One. He lost his love for the world. He lost his love for the coordination of the plan, of fruitfulness that he was given. He lost his love. When you lose your love, when you become loveless, as you remember from Paul and those writings to Timothy, and what's going to happen in the latter days, men will be lovers of themselves, but they won't be lovers of anything else, anybody else. Now, this idea of lovelessness. What is lovelessness? How do you know that you're slipping into lovelessness? Put a cushion over your shoes and your toes, okay? Your first sign that you are losing that you're becoming loveless, is that you are offended about anything. I shouldn't just say you. As soon as we embrace offense, from insult, from somebody else's offense, as long as we embrace this idea of offense, what that means is we have lost love. We have let it just slip away from us, and now we are caught up in something else, some other energy that is unloved. Offense is unloved. Offense is always unloved. There is no exception to that. Now, that we may have to take actions need to be taken to protect the lives of people, not theoretically or abstractly, but in real situations where real dangers take place. But that has nothing to do with offense. We should never act. We are called to learn to not act out of offense. Unforgiveness. I told you, maybe get another cushion and put it over your toes again. What are you offended about? Cain, why is your face, what has drawn your face into that contorted look where you're just pained and angry? What level of offense? And now, who are you not forgiving? What is this unforgiveness in you? Because unforgiveness is a joy killer. Unforgiveness says, I can't love because I'm too offended, I'm too hurt, I'm too wounded, I'm too scarred. Unforgiveness says, I want to control this situation. Unforgiveness is about control. It's not about fairness. It's not about equity. It's about control. If I cannot forgive you, I can think I'm controlling you. Well, unforgiveness is another aspect of unlove. Resentment also is a factor of unlove. If you resent anybody else, if you consider them to be privileged, if you consider them to get all the good stuff, if you consider envy and jealousy comes into that process. So that's the issue of lovelessness, the fourth joy stealer. Now, beyond the fourth joy stealer, I want to go another one. These are the things that hit Cain. Ingratitude. Lovelessness was the previous one in all its manifestations. Now we have ingratitude. Ingratitude is sort of once you go past this level, you are in a spiral so far down, you're in deep trouble. Why? What am I talking? Ingratitude? I mean, Cain had so many things to be upset about. You missed the point, right? You missed the point of the story. It wasn't what Cain had the right to be upset about. It was about what he was supposed to be joyful about. Do you remember what I told you? This was at the harvest season. This was Cain's first harvest. He had co-labored with the Creator of the universe. He had been blessed with the latter and the former rains. And a parcel of real estate, terra firma, that grew, had nothing but thorns and thistles in it, had produced beautiful, flowing wheat and barley and whatever else, and trees would produce fruit. All these different vegetables, everything had come forth. And he could eat, and he had collaborated and worked with the creation and its plan to see forth this great things. This has been his moment of extreme joy and thankfulness, gratitude. You know, this is what we thank the Lord for the rain. We thank the Lord for the crop. We thank the Lord for the year. This is what we do. And he says, instead of that, what did he do? He didn't look at what he could be thankful for, what he should be thankful for. He didn't count his blessings. He counted all the obstacles and the challenges that appeared to him in the process. And so ingratitude is the key factor of joy stealing that actually takes it beyond. This is where covetousness and lust and envy and jealousy really begin to take place. Ingratitude. Comparison with others is where it also comes in. Here's the issue. What do you have to be thankful for? Don't argue with me yet. I know you've probably got 100 things like Cain did. To not be thankful about certain things, to be angry about certain things, but that's not my question to you. I don't want to hear excuses. I don't want to give excuses when it's my turn. It's not about excuses about why we shouldn't feel gratitude. The issue is, why should we feel gracious? Do you remember? Do you remember? Well, if you've forgotten, let me begin to start and remind us all at the same time of just a few of the little things we could be thankful for. I hope I don't have to remind you of this. I hope you'll be thinking about things as we're going. But put your hand right in front of your mouth and hold it there for about 5-6 seconds. Did you feel the breath coming out of your lungs onto your hand? Do you realize you are breathing? You did nothing to deserve that. You can do nothing to deserve that. You are breathing for one reason and one reason only: the goodness of God to give you this moment, to give you this hour, to give you this day, this assigned, allotted time upon the earth. Put your hand over your heart. Feel something. Let all the sensations go away, and just see if you can feel something happening inside of your chest. Well, unless you just passed out on the floor, I think you can. Some of you might have passed out on the floor. I can't see you all through the camera. But assuming that you were like me and you put your hand on your heart and you held it there and you got quiet for a second, what you felt was the pulsing, beating of the heart that the Creator of the universe gave to you to be alive at such a time as this. So we just talked about breath, and we talked about heartbeat. Not only this, do you realize that if you take in air and then you come up with a thought that you want to express, and you form that thought in your brain, and then you express air over your vocal cords, what you thought in your head will come out in words through your mouth. Animals can't do that. Donkeys, one time. Most creatures, rocks don't do that. Human beings have been given, you have been given this ability to think thoughts in your head, activate your vocal cords with neural impulses, let breath flow over those vocal cords, and let that same thing that you thought come out in actual words and messages and communication, and thereby to impact the world in ways no other creature upon the earth can do. Did you realize that? Are you grateful for that? If you are grateful for that, then how you use that gift may change. How you use that precious gift of being able to form thoughts and put them into action, and by virtue of activating your vocal cords and letting breath flow over that, air flow over those, you will begin to say, wait a minute, what is coming out of my mouth? What am I allowing this precious gift of the Creator of the universe to be used for? How precious it is that if you've ever had a loved one, or a child, or a parent, or a friend, or a coworker, and you sat down and had a conversation with that person, or you told them you loved them, or you said anything of any value to a person, are you thankful for the ability to do that? Are you grateful that God gave you this ability to impact your world through speech? All right, I'm just giving you 3 things that we could go on. And to some level, all of us can move. We don't have to stay locked in one position, frozen in limbo. Even if we were quadriplegic, heaven help us, even yet we would be able to have some level of motion with our body. Have you ever? The idea of being able to move and impact our world and create resonance and vibration and affect our impact, that is another. These are just basic things that if you can't think of anything else. Did you eat today? Maybe not yet. Here in America, it's still morning. Did you eat last night? Did you eat yesterday? Did you eat the day before? Did you eat last week? Did you eat? Did food get on your table or in your mouth? When you chewed it up, what happened? Did you choke and die? Or did the system that God created in your body, did it process that throughout where you could not only not die, but actually draw nourishment and nutrition from the whole thing that you ate? Okay, I could go on, and we should be able to go on about the things that we are grateful for, thankful for. And it's when we lose that ability and we lose that processing. You know, I'm thankful that I have a table to sit by. I'm thankful that I have a chair to sit in that doesn't collapse on me. I'm thankful I have a jacket to wear. I'm thankful I have a tie to put on. I'm thankful that I have still a little bit of hair left in my head. I'm just giving you examples. I'm thankful I have glasses to help me when I can't see very well on the up-close stuff. I think everything that you see in life should be something you find a way to be thankful for. So, gratitude. The thing that steals your joy, first of all, most of all probably, after lovelessness, is ingratitude. And then we go on. That's what happened to Cain. And then there is what in Hebrew is called lashon hara. Lashon hara just means speech that has a negative content to it. It's not necessarily false. It could be true. It could be completely true. But it focuses on the negative side of things rather than the positive side. If you remember how the Holy One did in creation. After that he made the first day, he declared it a first day. Yom Revi. Yom Echad. First day, one day. And he said, and he saw the light that had come forth on that day. He saw the or, kitov, and it was good. It was good. And then he goes through it's a song, and he keeps repeating himself. Every time he does something, and he says it's good. He never says it's evil. He never says it's horrible. He never says this is going to cause some bad troubles. He creates all the creatures of the earth, all the things that move upon the earth and in the sky. He creates angels, he creates demons. He creates the serpent as well as he creates the fish of the sea and the fowl of the earth. And he still doesn't say, it's going to have some bad stuff in it. Every time he looks at it, he says, kitov, it's good. It's a fountain of good in the world. This is the idea of seeing the good. Choosing to see the good. Joy comes from choosing to see and focusing on the good, and therefore not allowing self-talk or verbal talk to come out that focuses upon the negative. Radical shift. Most conversations you will hear in this world focus upon the negative. That means it's focusing upon the earthly, the fleshly, the mortal, instead of focusing upon that which God says, which is kitov, it is good. So then we get into anger and worry and anxiety and fear, which is obsession with obstacles, as opposed to with the plan and with the maker of the plan. Now, do we see why we lose joy? Why Cain he has had these things, and he has allowed these things to steal, like foxes in the vineyard, steal his joy. Never said, I want it to happen. It just began to happen. And he began this pattern, and if you know Cain's story, he infected his entire bloodline. So badly that it just kept multiplying and multiplying and multiplying until the flood. And the flood's purpose was basically to take away the poisoned bloodline of Cain. That all started with this process of losing joy. Now, if you want to bless your bloodline, if you want to bless those who come after you, those who you are put into the family to keep regenerating, to keep the process going, the chain, the link in the chain. If you want the people on the south side of your chain of life to be blessed and fruitful, it has to start with you engaging with kitov and seeing the good, staying focused on the joy, staying focused on the life, and avoiding the anger, taking the disciplines, saying, I will not receive anger. And if you've received it, then get rid of it before the sundown. This is what the psalmist said. And then Paul repeated, do not let the sun go down on your anger. You shouldn't have it. You shouldn't embrace it at all. But if you do, make sure you don't carry it past the sundown. Now, it's not a command to be angry, by the way. I think a lot of people read that as, be angry. No, if you're angry, Hebrew doesn't say, it's not a command, it's not a directive. It's, if you get angry, if you embrace this toxic substance, which is focusing upon the obstacles and the challenges and the offenses and the wrongs as opposed to focusing on the plan. If you do that, then make sure you get it cleansed out and purified before the sun goes down. So we have these focuses. These are the joy stealers in your life and my life. There's one more I want to talk about. That's the prayerlessness aspect of things. A prayerless person is ultimately going to be a joyless person. You say, well, I like singing. I like dancing. I like waving flags, or I like, repeating choruses, or I like all this religious stuff. I like this pious stuff. I like to read books, and I like to read the, religious books, and I like to be in services and go to meetings. And I said, I want to, my question to you is not that, because he never really makes that a big deal. He says, my question to you is, how's your prayer life? How, Bill? Forget all the religious stuff. Forget all the stuff you could fake. Forget all the stuff that looks pretty on the outside that you can say you're better than other people, like the Pharisee at the prayers. The real question is, when you pray, what happens when you do you even think about prayer, or is the first thing to go online, or to have a conversation with another human being, or to write down how angry you feel, or let you stomp off in some sort of a rage, or get all tense and nervous and sit and worry about stuff? What is your reaction to things that happen? Because the first reaction is supposed to be prayerfulness, getting into conversation with the Holy One. This is psalmistry. You just learn how to process the things that happen in the world through the lens of conversation with the Creator. So, prayerlessness. Cain said zilch, nada, nothing to the Holy One. He just went out and started messing with his brother Hevel. He didn't have this conversation. If we're going to see a paradigm shift, and I pray that we are, I implore us all that we let this transform us today while we're in Sukkot, before we step off into the world again, while we're in this process of feeling the joy, to learn to process everything through prayer and prayerfulness. Cain said nothing. Another stealer of joy for Cain and for all of us is to act out of raw emotion, unprocessed. Raw means unprocessed. You can have emotion. It is a part of the fleshly response. You will feel things. But what do you do with them when you feel them? Raw emotion is like rage, or fear, terror, panic, paranoia. It's raw emotion. You haven't processed it. So how do you process emotion? You acknowledge it to the Holy One, not to people, to the Holy One. You acknowledge it and have this conversation. You take your prayer life to another dimension, having conversations about what it is, and let Him begin to put into you what His feelings are, what His thoughts are, what His ways are. And it's always going to change your, I guess this comes down to a basic issue of how you see the Holy One. If you see Him as an angry God, sinners in the hand of an angry God. If you view Him as upset with everything that's going on in the world. If you view Him as offended and hurt and wounded and bitter about, I'm sorry I made men, I wish I had never done that. If this is the way you see him, then you're going to want to reflect that. And you're going to act like that. And boy, will the world ever suffer for you. You're the most dangerous person upon the face of the earth. If you're communicating to them that God's angry, that God is bitter, that he is wishing we would all just go away and die, then that's what you think is going to happen. He's going to conclude the world, conclude his whole experiment by destroying us all. But if you have a different view, if you are ever in his presence and you sense this absolute passionate joy and delight in his creation, then that is what you will communicate as well to other people, because you see how much God loves other people. Even your enemies. Even those who are doing wrong and doing bad and are caught up in some, at present time, are caught up in some really bad actions, behaviors, patterns of behaviors. And not saying he likes those things, but he loves them and he wants them to come forth of that. And he has a vision for how he's going to keep sending messengers, sending examples, sending light into their world until eventually they begin to catch up the contagion. In the natural realm, we saw the Rona. It took a year and a half to basically make its way to our little village, our little town. But eventually it came. Now, that's just on the negative, the dark side of the world. On the kingdom side, it says it may take years for me to break through with something to get that person out of where they are. But if all you see is their behavior right now, then you can't see what I'm doing down the road. And you can't get on board with my plan to bring that good about. And you don't forget that I will wait till the next generation if necessary. I'll wait till the generation after that if necessary. I'll wait till the third generation or the fourth generation after that to bring this redemption process to bear. So cool your jets down here with all your judgment and all your anger and all your offense and all your sense of injustice and unrighteousness. So when we act out of raw emotion or sentiment, we don't process it through, and that leads us to act out of outrage, out of grief, or in some cases out of romantic notions of sentimentality. And none of those are productive for the kingdom. The world is all full of it. The world is going in the wrong direction because of it. Romance and romantic notions are no better than grief as a motivator, nor are they any better than outrage as a motivator. If those are your motivators, then you have lost joy. Joy is the motivator. Sense of faithful confidence in God. And then there's the final thing that I've listed on my little list of things that steal joy. And that, I call it hypocrisy. We're all guilty. I kind of get tickled when I hear somebody talk about those hypocrites. You catch my drift. Nothing more hypocritical than somebody who complains about hypocrites. Nothing in this world more hypocritical than someone who complains and worries about hypocrites. There is nothing more hypocritical in the entire world than someone who complains or worries about people who are hypocrites. How can you say that, Bill? Because what does that tell you? You are looking at the negative. You have lost your joy. You have lost your love. You've lost your sense of the grand plan. And you are focusing upon some little facet of things that you believe is hypocrisy. And what really hypocrisy is just a emptiness of the fear of God. An emptiness of the fear of God. Loss of the fear of God. The reverence for God. If we revere God, we will not worry about somebody else's hypocrisy. We'll be too worried about our own. We'll be too worried about whether or not we are engaging in the things that God has planned, or we're not. We're not worried about what somebody else has done. Yeshua had this conversation with us. Says, you guys are so good at judging people. You relish it. You almost get fired up and excited about judging other people. You feel like you're so superior to them. He said, here's the problem with that. To the extent that to the same measure that you judge someone else, with the same level of measure, I'm going I'm going to give it right back to you because you started the reaping and sowing process. You started the sowing and reaping process. So you're going to get right back what you want. You're never going to win this battle. So quit the process. Just exit the ramp. Exit the strategy. Don't go into this realm of judging hypocrites or this, that, and the other. Now, when we get into a realm of piety in form and self-will only, this is sort of a good sign to us that we've lost our joy. Now, for instance, this is the festival of Sukkot. You know, the mitzvah, the physical mitzvah, after the joy process, the kick is that you have a lulav. You have the palm, and you have the willow. You go and take the 4 species. You take the willow, you take the palm, you take the myrtle, and then you take a beautiful fruit. It just doesn't say, we use etrog as by nature, but by tradition, but it's just a beautiful fruit. And you take these 4 species. Now, if you're looking at somebody else's 4 species and say, that's not as pretty as mine, you should have an etrog, not a pomegranate, or not a lemon, or not an apple. Do you realize what we've just done? We've lost the fear of the Lord. We have lost the sense of fulfilling the joy, delighting in the mitzvah ourselves, and have tried to judge other people's situations. You go to somebody's sukkah. You go to somebody's tabernacle. Well, that's not got thatch with an opening at the top where they can see the stars and the moon. That's not got 3 full sides done. That's not a good, that's not a sufficient sukkah. What are we thinking? What are you doing? Where are you going with that process? That is not even your issue now. Is using piety in form to take away the joy. And you lose the fear of God in this process. Now, I've told you I'm calling for a paradigm shift. Once a year, we get this process of saying we're going to have to rethink everything. It's time to rethink everything and reconnect with the source of true joy. Obviously, that's the first thing. We're trying to break free. But breaking free is the hardest of these 3 processes of learning joy. Breaking free, getting above, rising above these things. If we did that, now let's just assume that we dealt with world situations and circumstances as they came up. We dealt with insults and offenses and injustices in our world. Sins by other people against us, sins by other people against people we love. Some of them painful. Let's say we learn to deal with that by holding on to our joy, faith, trusting in God to bring about good, belief that He knows what He's doing, belief that all will work its way out generation by generation until His plan is fulfilled. If we were to do that, how would it change your life? How would it change your conversations with the rest of the world? How would it change your online presence? How would it change your family relationships, your relationship with your wife, your husband, your spouse, your friends, your co-workers? How would it change if we stayed glued to love and to joy and to hope and to faith? That's our challenge for the week. Now, what are the second thing is we not only have to break free. Are you ready to break free? I'm so ready to break free. We had a little taste of what breaking free looks like last night. Breaking free of guilt and shame and grief and anger and offense. But that's just here in this room, in this building. We need to break free as a people across the world, across the whole country, across all countries, across national lines. We need to break free of these negative things. But then we need to connect with the wellspring. If we break free and we just stay free, we're kind of floating. We need to connect with the wellspring of true joy. Psalm 16 is, there's many passages, Deuteronomy 16 that we've read. We're supposed to rejoice and be vessels of contagious joy. Deuteronomy 16, 13 through 15. But Psalm 16. The first thing that last night we mentioned, one of the things that might be said in the heavenly realms about what Tony would reflect now that he sees things from that perspective, our beloved brother who's graduated. And the first thing, that I thought he said from Psalm 16, verse 6, is the lines have fallen to me in pleasant places. the circumstances of life have fallen out in a way that I can be joyful, content, glad. Oh, there are probably things I could not be glad about. But I am choosing to focus upon the things that the lines have fallen for me in pleasant places. Can you say that about your life? Would your family, if they were asked secretly, well, you weren't present, would your family say, my dad, my mother, my brother, my sister, my child would be the first to say that the lines of life have fallen out for me in pleasant ways? Or would they say, no matter what you would say in this room when you're trying to be all spiritual and all religious, all pious, would they say that, boy, I've been around my mom a lot, or my dad, or my brother, or my sister, or my child a lot lately, and the last thing they would ever say, because I heard their conversations, I've heard their complaining, I've heard their anger, I've heard their vile opinions coming out about all sorts of things about justice and injustice and morality and immorality and fair and unfair. I've heard all that stuff. The last thing my beloved one would say, unfortunately, is the lines have fallen for me in pleasant places. Now, this is a key as we sit here today, wherever you are, wherever we are at this particular moment, in whatever life circumstance we are in. The question becomes, would you acknowledge, would you believe, do you really understand that the lines of life have fallen to you in pleasant places? No matter what's happened to you, no matter how bad it was, no matter how bad people treated you, no matter how much you were rejected, no matter how much bad things could have happened, who died, who didn't die, who should have died, as opposed to somebody else who should have died, how they should have died, how they shouldn't have died, how you should have been sick, how you shouldn't have been sick, how you should have had health issues, how you didn't have health issues. Have the lines fallen to you in pleasant places or not? Because if not, you will not be joyful. And you will not exude joy, and you will not have contagious joy. So where do you find that your lines have fallen in pleasant places? The presence of the Creator of the universe. Because you see, that's where David went with that whole Psalm 16 thing. He keeps on. He says, for you are I have a goodly inheritance. And he goes on to say, in your presence is fullness of joy. No matter, David had some stuff. Matter of fact, if you look at this psalm, if you look at the first line, you know how the psalms always, a lot of times will open with some sort of little introductory phrase. And in English, you're going to read it to say, this psalm is to the melody of the death of the Son. S-O-N. As David says, the lines of this life have fallen to me in pleasant places. In your presence I have fullness of joy. At your right hand are pleasures forevermore. The circumstances are the death of his Son. Do you remember? Do you remember the circumstances? Do you remember what happened? How his Son died? Do you remember how much grief he suffered? How much woundedness and brokenness? And then he came forth and he was ready to sing the psalm that we sing for joy. In his presence is fullness of joy. At his right hand are pleasures forevermore. All the lines have fallen to me in pleasant places. This is the message of true joy. Can we connect with the persona? Because it's not just the idea of God or a God. The only way you can connect with and receive the importation of joy into you from the source of its joy is to know him as a persona, as to have a conversation with a real being, not spattered phrases thrown up to heaven hoping something catches, or tossed into a bowl of incense that you hope will burn its way upward in smoke. I'm talking about having a conversation with the Creator of the universe, like Adam had conversations with him, like Abraham had conversations with him, like Yaakov, like Yitzhak, like all David, like Solomon, like Yeshua taught his disciples to do when they spoke to someone particular, not in theory. Our Father, Avinu, our Father. This is to draw off the energy and the holiness and the confidence and the peace of who He is, the joy that is in Him. If you don't see Him as joyful, I don't know what you're going to do. I can only tell you my experiences, and I've told you mine, but every time that I have had an encounter with Him, it has always been, I would have thought He was angry. I would have thought He was upset. I would have thought He was so mad. And I find out He is so full of joy. Just that we're having the conversation brings Him utter delight. Well, anyway, the other thing, as opposed to just being in His presence, then even we can get it absent that by just focusing upon His works. Just looking at creation. That's why I encourage you to get out, to go and look at the trees and go to a waterfall or go to an ocean or just drive by a lake or just walk a few steps into your yard and hear the squirrels or the chimpanzees, if wherever you are, and whatever's out in your yard, just begin to listen to it and watch the beauty of creation. His works He has made, and look at the night sky, and look at the stars and the Milky Way and the Southern Cross if you're in the Southern Hemisphere. Look at these different beautiful things that He has made, and don't worship them. Worship the one who created them. Delight in Him and all of His good things that He's done. Okay, so the works and the demonstrations of His covenant. And, you know, every time a child is born, every time a baby is born, His promise to make the world fruitful is being come forth again. The possibilities are endless. The potential is good. And then there's even the fruit of your own labor. This is where Cain got off track. Ecclesiastes, the Kohelet says, it is good to rejoice in the fruit of one's labor. Because you see, we're co-laboring. We're touching the Holy One. When we do something and we co-labor with Him and He brings us a produce or a fruit, and we can rejoice in that, not because of our work, because of His work and the chance to work together. The harvest, the ingathering. You know, if you can't find any of those things, just get out of the news for a while and focus upon the city of Jerusalem. In the book of Lamentations, it refers to the city of Jeremiah, the writer of Lamentations, refers to Jerusalem by a very interesting phrase. The joy of the whole earth. If you can't find Him, if you can't find His presence, if you can't somehow manage to get out of if you can't rejoice in the creation, the beauty of creation, if you can't rejoice in the fact that you've co-labored and seen the fruit of labor with co-laboring with God, if you can't find joy in that, think of Jerusalem. Think of the city not built with human hands. Think of the city with foundations whose builder and maker is God. Think of the place where heaven touches earth and where the portal of heaven is open and releasing itself and is free into the world. Think of Jerusalem, Yerushalayim, and this process, just the thought of it. And it goes all the way through the book of Revelation. As a matter of fact, the last thing we see is, and I looked, and behold, the skies were open. And I saw descending as from heaven the city, the new Jerusalem. And let us rejoice and be glad, for the wedding of the Lamb has come, and the bride has made herself ready. This is the rejoicing is focusing. If you can't find anything else, center on Jerusalem, city of peace, city of shalom, the dwelling place of the Holy One of God. Now that is a sort of a very basic thing, learning how to connect. The Ark of the Covenant brings joy. Thought of the Ark. What's in the Ark? Well, first the mercy seat over the Ark, and the tables of testimony inside, and the fruitfulness. And then Messiah. Messiah is a source of joy. Can you think of, not as some concept or abstract principle, but as the person that you met and know and brought you into this life, brought you into this walk that is discipling you day by day. This should be the source of tremendous joy if we just connect with the Messiah, Mashiach. My Jewish people have said for Mashiach. We sing that song, we proclaim it, we declare it, and all of a sudden joy we connect with the source of joy as His person. And then, of course, there is the Ruach HaKodesh, His Spirit, His breath. his very life force. And, it says that the kingdom of heaven is what? Righteousness? Yeah. And it's shalom, righteousness with shalom, not just righteousness. Righteousness with a sense of well-being and wholeness and wellness and shalom. Oh, but it's not over, we're not through yet. The kingdom of heaven is righteousness with shalom added to it, filtered through it, filtering all things around it, and joy in the Ruach HaKodesh, in the holy breath, in the holy enlivening spirit within us. This idea, if we focus upon the Holy Spirit, I encourage you, find your ways, your portals, find your connection points, your docks, to connect with the eternal sources of joy. And that's part 2. And part 3, the third element of joy is to put on the psalmist uniform. I'm not talking about whether you sing. You may sing horribly. Your voice may not sound great at all. I'm not talking about the way you sing. I'm talking about the form that you use. That's a form. I'm talking about the mindset and the toolkit of the psalmist. David was the picture. We'll see this process over and over again. All the book of Revelation. What happens in the heavens? What is going on in the heavens? Well, the elders are fussing at one another. They don't like the color of the carpet and the sea of glass. No, not so much. No, what's happening? Blessed and praise and worship and glory and joy and celebration. All that, every time you see something happening in heaven, it's all this process of the joy being released in the heavenly realm. The elders and the seraphim and the cherubim and the 4 living creatures and the saints of the ages and the vast host, all singing songs of joy. We're bringing this to earth. This is the psalmist toolkit. This is the psalmist uniform. To begin to say, okay, no matter what's happening around me, what my response to this is going to be. I will sing unto the Lord, for he has triumphed gloriously. A horse and its rider, he is drawn into the sea. Who is like our God? Who is faithful in wonders? Who is like our God? Now, this is the key to saying in joy. And whatever your sukkah may look like, if you even have one, and I hope you do, but if you don't, I'm not going to worry about that. I believe God's going to build a sukkah around you. Whatever your lulav, your 4 species, your myrtle and your palm branch and your willow and your beautiful fruit may look like, or how much it wilts during the week, that's not our issue. Whether you were able to take the Shabbat Shalom of a Sabbath on the first day of Sukkot, or whether circumstances did not allow you to do that, or somebody's ox was in the ditch and you had to actually work on the first day of Sukkot. I would rather that hadn't happened for you, but if it did, we're going to deal with that in joy and saying, okay. So the issue is not that. The issue is, have you found the joy? Because if nothing else, if you do not do anything else in this festival of Sukkot, cast off the non-joy, the anti-joy. Cast off everything that is unjoy and reconnect with the source and the flowing river, the wellspring of joy and all of its different tributaries. And then take up the psalmist's harp, take up his toolkit, put a lilting tune in your heart and begin to praise and give thanks unto the Holy One. Give thanks unto the Lord, for he is good, more than the world is bad, more than our friends betray us, more than our loved ones die on us. He is good, and his mercy endures, continues, and sustains forever and ever. Amen. Be joyful, rejoice in the Lord always. And I say again, rejoice. See you next week. Shabbat shalom.